For the metal tooling techniques, I would recommend just using your regular pencil to start. It's something you're used to holding. If you have them, I've kept tools like this from those scratch boards where you scratch and another color is brighter underneath. They're just a pointed stick with a nice tall end. Or one of my favorite things I've started to use over the years are clay tools with a rounded end and maybe a little bit of kind of that butter knife or something a little pointier for drawing the lines. But to start, I'm just going to use my pencil. You need newspaper underneath, something soft, kind of squishy. Will make your indentations, your embossing a lot stronger when you get to metal tooling. So the very first thing is we're going to try 3 different techniques. So I need to divide the space into 3 pieces. You can do it evenly. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but this is kind of your first moment of using your tools on the metal. You're going to draw and press really hard. And it doesn't make the pencil color, it makes that indentation. And here on the back you can see right where I drew with my pencil. That really nice line really pressed in. Okay, and then I'm going to divide it one more time because it's 1, 2. And now I've got 2 more areas. All right, to start with a rounded, anything you do that you want pressed out or pushed up is really great to use a rounded technique. I've seen it used on petals in like a flower. I've seen it used a lot of times on our masks for noses or eyes. So I'm gonna just do an example with like a giant eye shape because I think that's pretty fun and something you've probably seen before. So I'm gonna draw it first, making kind of the eye shape, and I want the middle of the eye to be really round. So I'm going to try and round this piece. So I press down with the pencil, making that shape. And you can see that it pops out a little bit, not a ton. When you want to do the rounded, you're going to have to turn it over. And if you don't turn it over, it's going to go the wrong way. So I'll show you going the correct way, and then I'll do a non-example, what if I forgot. This is just your practice piece, and you're learning how to use it, so don't get too stressed out. I like to use these rounded pieces. You can use the eraser, or you can, of course, use the back of this guy. Just make sure you're not using something pointed, because it's going to make lines, and it might tear it without actually making it rounded. So now that it's turned over, I'm going to go where I want it round. I'm going in between the lines, and I push down. Push, push, push. Get really close to the edges. Those are kind of a really good border. It lets me know where to stop and to keep my tool within there. You can keep going quite a few times. The more you press and go around, usually the curvier and more bent that rounded piece will be. Are you ready to see it? Hopefully you can see that this really pops out and is a nice curved surface for you to work on. When you think you've got it curvy enough, you need to go back and just press down the edge again. It just makes it a little smoother to look at, and it really helps stand out that you did this technique, and here it is for people to focus on. So there's a good example of rounded. Like I said, I want to show you kind of a not so great example. This kind of happens when you get too excited and try and skip ahead. So maybe I want to do another circle down here. I draw the shape, and now I'm going to press on here, and you can tell that I am making it the opposite direction. This is now kind of a bowl shape. It's not rounded and popping out at me. It's going to be facing the wrong direction. So it's, if you wanted to make an indentation where it goes down in kind of a bowl shape, that would be great. But if I was trying to make an eye that's popping out at me, I've just done it backwards. When you get on your final mask, make sure you think through which side's the front, which side's the back, making sure that you are rounding. You're pressing from the back, making sure that the front is bulging, round, curved surface. The next one, I'm going to keep on cranking through them. Bumpy. This is the technique I like to say is the loud, kind of annoying, but really fun to do. You are going to go tap, 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 making a series of dots, but you want them close together so it makes an overall texture you can feel. I just like to use a pencil because I'm more comfortable holding it. Definitely you can use one of these wood posts or the end of one of these little clay tools, but I like a pencil. If you're really aggressive with it, yes, you're gonna break a lot of pencils. You don't need to do that though. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna show you as I begin. Keeping the dots really close together is key. And then I'll show you a non-example, a couple other things that would not work, possibly tear your metal that you don't want to do. So I'm going to tap. I'm keeping them as close together as I can, even doubling back and going over things again. Trying to fill in that space. It's definitely not a perfect process. It's all about getting a really bumpy, rough texture for you to work on. These taps are going to go straight down, straight up. It's not lines. That would not look at all the same. You want to tap, and tap, and tap, and tap, and tap. And right now the noise might not drive you as crazy, but when we have all the students in the classroom doing it, it will get a little noisy. Remember, you're making the texture, you're not just trying to make noise. Now to do that, non-example would be if I just go like this, all over the place. That is a series of dots, but it's not the same texture that I wanted to create. This is a good texture. You can even see, some people like it from this side better. Remember that front back, whichever side you prefer, make sure you're using it effectively in yours. This makes a series of little dots, but it does not look at all the same as that bumpy texture I'm trying to create. The other thing is if you take it off of your newspaper and you tap a lot, that's how people break their pencils like crazy. They also will put it somewhere and then they will just really attack the metal, and you totally can rip through these pieces. I've seen it tons and tons of times, or they're holding it up, and you don't want a piece of metal all bent up like this. This is not quality work. It's just trying to destroy something, which isn't really what we're doing at all in art. We're trying to make it more beautiful, enhance it, and express ourselves. You might be expressing a lot of anger, but you're not really making an artwork. You don't want to tear and rip the metal. It might happen on the practice ones, and if it does, that's something you need to be aware of to cool down and be a little more gentle. But all of this is non-examples. This for sure is a good bumpy texture, either side you look at. The last one is ridged, and for this one I really want to zoom in so you can see really up close. It is so hard to explain in pictures, but I think when you see me actually making ridges, it'll be really easy to do, and it makes a great texture of like an up-down wave. For ridged, you can use the pencil or this little tool, and you're making lines, and you're going to push them in almost like you did right here in the middle. You're going to push them in nice and deep, and then when you leave a gap, I want it to be something nice and thin, almost the same width as the line you just did. Be careful, it's really easy to have them accidentally press together or become one line. So there's two of them. I'm going to do like 5 or 6 to show you. It's really fun to fill a large space with it. You can also totally do it in like curves or waves, but the next part is key. So I've made all of these bumps, and okay, I see the lines, but to really make the ridges stand out and pop, you turn it over. And you have to go in between. And this is so hard to see. I hope that this video makes it clearer. Here's the line I just pressed. It's pushed up, just like over here where I did the middle line. I'm going to go in between two of them and press down pretty hard. I don't want to go and cover up what I just did. I'm going in between it. Here's the next one. Pressing down, in between it. Pressing down. And I have to be careful not to let the tool jump into the other areas and block those lines. Here it is on a curve, still pressing in between. And this one's a little wide, so I can do it a couple times in here and on this side of it. This pressing in between is what makes it really so wavy and wrinkly. It's one of my favorite ones, just tactily, just the way it feels. I love to see a good ridged technique. Okay, so I've pressed in between all of these, and if you hear that noise, it's always a good sign. Now do you see how much more pronounced, how much more bumpy and wavy these look? That is a great ridge technique. For your final work, you're going to use at least 2 of these. Could be ridged and bumpy, could be rounded and bumpy, or these 2. However you want to use a combination of them, but I want to see effective use, quality work, not just I tried it, but I didn't use it effectively. For ridged, if you are making your lines way too far apart, it can be hard when you turn it over to get that entire space filled in. It also often leads to getting off track work, and it doesn't always pop as nice as when you keep them pretty close together.